Hi, Ron here from L.T.L Tutoring Central, and it's Friday again, and today I'm talking about compound complex sentences as promised last week. And this is the last of the 4 different kinds of sentences based on structure. And you might have already guessed that compound complex sentences are made up of a combination of compound sentences and complex sentences. But we're going to go into a more specific definition in the next slide, and then we're going to look at a few examples of compound complex sentences and how you can use them. So let's get started. So what exactly are compound complex sentences? Well, a compound complex sentence consists of 2 or more independent clauses. In other words, within that one sentence, you will actually have 2 or more sentences. Of course, you have to join them correctly. As we talked before, you can't just run them together or you'll have a run-on sentence. And just using commas doesn't work either. You'll have comma splice errors. So there are some rules about joining them together. Very similar to what we talked about before with the coordinating conjunctions or the conjunctive adverbs or transitional expressions. So I won't go through that again in this particular video. So they will have 2 or more independent clauses and at least one dependent clause that can have more than one dependent clause. And of course, they can have phrases as well, just like all the other sentence types that we talked about already. Now, if you're not sure about independent and dependent clauses, look back at some of the other sentences videos and some of the other grammar videos I have on YouTube. Or you can take my basic English writing course or my paragraph writing course, which goes into a bit more detail and explanation about dependent and independent clauses and how to use them. You have more flexibility with the compound complex sentence because, of course, you have more clauses and potentially more phrases to work with. So you can, as we talked before, you can arrange your clauses to make your sentences more powerful, but also to allow them to flow from one to another. And you have a lot of flexibility with what you can do with compound complex sentences. So play around with the clauses and the phrases and listen to your sentences as you're writing them or after you're writing them, read them aloud, and you can hear and you come to know what kinds of sentences you want for a particular article and how the sentences will follow one another. If they flow nicely, then that's exactly what you want to have. If they don't, you can always rearrange some of the clauses and try it out in a different format and see if that works better. So lots of flexibility with these kinds of sentences. Here are some examples of compound complex sentences. So for number 1, we have, on Friday, the class went skiing after it had stormed all week, and all the students had a great time. Now I have put the independent clauses in green and the dependent clauses in blue. So the first independent clause is, on Friday the class went skiing. That could be a sentence by itself. The second independent clause is, all the students had a great time. Again, I could write that as a separate sentence and it would be fine. But the dependent clause, after it had stormed all week, well, that can't stand by itself, can it? Because it doesn't make sense. If you walk up to someone and say, after it had stormed all week, they would be waiting for more information. What happened after? So that is, if it were written alone, would be called a sentence fragment. So we can't have that. But within the compound complex sentence, it works perfectly. So here we have 2 independent clauses and 1 dependent clause. Number 2, we have, whenever his parents come to visit, George takes them to see all the sights and sounds of the city, but they would prefer to relax a bit more. Well, we started off with a dependent clause in this case, whenever his parents come to visit. That word whenever turns this into a dependent clause. It needs something else, and we have it with an independent clause. George takes them to see all the sights and sounds of the city. And another independent clause, they would prefer to relax a bit more. So again, we have 2 independents and 1 dependent, but they're just arranged a little bit differently. Let's look at a couple more examples just to make sure that you understand what's happening here with compound complex sentences. The grand opening of a new department store is happening on Saturday, but I won't be able to attend because I am visiting with my friends in Sarnia. So we start off with an independent clause. The grand opening of a new department store is happening on Saturday. And we have another independent joined with the coordinating conjunction but. I won't be able to attend. Then we have our dependent clause, because I am visiting with my friends in Sarnia. So that word because turns this clause into a dependent clause. It depends on something else to complete it. So this is a compound complex sentence with two independent clauses and one dependent clause. In the second example, we have a little bit different situation here. Tammy, who is a vegetarian, makes delicious meals, and she encourages her boyfriend to become a vegetarian, but he is not willing to change at this time. So in the first case, you'll notice the dependent clause sort of comes in the middle of an independent clause. So the first independent is actually Tammy makes delicious meals, but we've added who is a vegetarian. Not vegetation, who is a vegetarian. And this gives us additional information about Tammy. It isn't essential. We could remove it. That's why there's commas on both sides. And that is our dependent clause in this compound complex sentence. The other independent clauses are she encourages her boyfriend to become a vegetarian. And the last one is he is not willing to change at this time. So in this sentence, we have three independent clauses, or in other words, three complete sentences, and we have one dependent clause. Now, I hope you had a little bit of fun and a lot of information about the different kinds of sentences based on structure. There are other ways of dividing sentences up. But learning about simple sentences and compound sentences, then complex sentences and compound complex sentences, you're on the road to having a higher quality of writing if you mix it up. Like I said in the last video, use these sentences, intersperse them throughout your writing, and it's always different depending on what you're writing and what age group you're writing toward and the complexity of what you're writing, how you're going to use these different types of sentences. But normally it's a good idea to have at least a few of each kind in your especially in your longer articles. A shorter one may have only a couple of different kinds of sentences, but in essays, book reports, speeches, presentations, these kinds of things, it's good to have different sentences. It gives you a different rhythm, a different flow, and it can make the article, whether someone is reading it or listening to it, if you're presenting or giving a speech, it makes it easier to listen to or to read if there's a certain rhythm, if it's a comfortable rhythm. And that can be achieved, at least in part, by using different sentence structures, different kinds of sentences and phrases, so that you can attain the kind of rhythm that you want, depending on the subject material and the complexity, as I say, of your article. So have fun playing around with sentences, using different kinds of sentences. And if you have any questions, obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, you can put the questions below and I will answer them for you. Here I am again, popping in just to give you the contact information. And you see my email there is tutoringcentral@hotmail.com, and the website is www.tutoringcentral.com. And of course, my name is Ron Johnson with L.T.L. Tutoring Central. And I'm going to post some links below. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can click on the links for the Basic English Writing course, Paragraph Writing course, Essay Writing course, and I may put a couple of other links to courses as well. And these, especially the Basic English course and Paragraph Writing course, will go into some detail about kinds of sentences by structure and also grammar and how to join sentences, these kinds of ideas that you might need. And the essay writing course is a little bit more involved, but these you do mostly on your own. There are some quizzes and there is some feedback in the paragraph writing course if you want to use it, and in the essay writing course as well. You don't have to, but if you want to, I will give you some feedback. But mostly you do those on your own. But I will also put a link to some writing lessons that are more personalized, and I would be helping you along the way. And that's a great idea because I can zero in on your particular issues if you're having any problems with your writing, not just based on sentences, but also punctuation, other grammar points, just the logic and reasoning of your article, of the way you put things together. So there's lots and lots of tips and things I can help you with in terms of your writing. I'll also put a link to the blog and a link to the website, and these should all be clickable links. So if you're watching this, they should be below the video. And otherwise, just have fun using the sentences, practicing with them, and trying to mix them up in your writing. Oh, I should mention as well, it is on the screen there, free information on Zoom or Skype if you want, if you were going to take some lessons from me. So that's always fun. It's good to get together, and there's no obligation. We just chat, make sure it's a good fit for you, and then if you decide to continue on, that's great. I'd love to be your tutor. I'd love to be your educational coach. And I look forward to hearing from you. Even if you don't go that route, you can ask a question, make a comment, subscribe to the channel, please, and give it a like, give it a little thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. And of course, send it along to others that you think might be interested in learning about writing. Check out my Facebook link as well. I'll try to put that down below because most days I have a question there and I answer it the next day. So if you want to practice some grammar, which includes punctuation, word choice, sentence structure, all kinds of pieces of English grammar, check that out as well. That's it for me today. I shall see you next week with a new topic. Enjoy your writing and have fun. Bye-bye.